Hi, my name is Lovelace, and I'm the Consul for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs at the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai. I'm delighted to join you today as part of this program with some fantastic speakers who are going to be talking to us about pivoting from the pandemic, practical advice for professionals and business leaders. I hope everyone's safe and sound in the midst of the lockdown. It's the largest lockdown during peacetime in human history here in India, and I hope everyone's doing well within it. In today's discussion, we have three speakers who have used this lockdown period to create a playbook based on their experiences on how to be resilient and how to cope. They're going to share their personal stories today and insights on how businesses could change their stance from one of adversity to one of advantage. After this conversation, we're going to be having an interactive question and answer session, and I would like you to please type in any questions that you have in the chat box that appears at either side of your screen or below your screen, depending on your device. And then we'll have our guests address those questions as time permits. Now, as we move forward, I would also like to recognize and thank several members of our team and our partners. I want to start off by thanking my colleague Brenda Jaikanth and my colleague TGV, Kathleen Hosey. I also want to thank Brenda Balachandran. I also want to thank our partners Amani Institute, AirSui, and our AirSui mentors and mentees, the members of TIE, our American Center patrons, the AIESEC, and many entrepreneurs who are joining us online today. And with that, I would like to now introduce our speakers for the day. Mr. Kiruba Shankar is a social media consultant and the founder of F5 Technologies. He's the president of the Professional Speakers Association of India, and he's also an organic farmer. He has 24 years of experience in the internet space, and it helps craft digital strategies for large firms, and is consulted for leading brands. He's a global professional speaker and has delivered over 700 talks at conferences and corporate events in more than 20 countries. He's authored 5 books, and he's been teaching for 18 years at leading business schools. Kiruba also participated in the U.S. Department of State-sponsored 2014 International Visitor Leadership Program, IVLP, on internet governance and cybersecurity. Welcome, Kiruba. We're so glad you're here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lauren.
We're delighted. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Babu Krishnamoorthy. Babu is a financial consultant, author, and professional speaker. He's delivered keynotes and masterclasses in areas related to personal and corporate finance to audiences as varied as corporate executives, entrepreneurs, and the general public. His masterclasses on personal wealth management are called Money Mantra Now, and they have a steady following. He speaks on subjects related to personal financial fitness and financial lessons for entrepreneurs. And I can tell you that I myself personally have been reading parts of his selections from this book that we'll be speaking about, and I found it very useful. So thank you and welcome, Babu. We're delighted that you could join us. And I'd also like to introduce Ms. Srijata Bhatnagar. She's the author of Setback Leadership and an international professional speaker. She loves speaking, using engaging real-life stories, amusing incidents, humor, personal experiences, and even talking about painful setbacks. Her expertise lies in guiding businesses and individuals to rise beyond their challenges, fears, and limiting beliefs to achieve holistic success in their professions and lives. She's also the membership chair of the Professional Speakers Association of India. So we have a lot of professional speaker experience on the call with us today. I'm going to start off actually by asking a question to Kiruba. If I may. Kiruba, can you please tell our viewers what motivated you to embark upon a book project like the one that you did? Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. It's a very interesting project that we took, because all of us, every one of us have been impacted by the pandemic. You know, we are stuck at home. We have one of two choices, right? So one, you can feel low, you can crib about the situation that's been given to you, or you can actually make the most of what has been given to you. And as we are all part of the Professional Speakers Association of India, so everyone is a professional speaker, meaning that everyone is an expert in one particular area of expertise. People have developed this expertise over decades. And one of the things that we realized is each one of us have been impacted in a particular way. The impact is common across everyone, the range of impact and the severity of impact may vary. But the key thing was, as we started to discuss within the group, there were ideas that came out from one person that was very useful for people in other industries. So what we found was this cross-pollination of ideas, cross-pollination of hacks, cross-pollination of techniques on how we can successfully turn this pandemic into a position of positivity was something that we learned. And that's how the idea came about. Hey, saying we all benefit by discussions, and how can we take this benefit to a larger audience? And that's how the idea came about. So we selected 21 people from the association. Every single member is an expert in a different field, which means 21 people from 21 different fields. And we took on the challenge of finishing this entire book in 21 days. 21 authors, 21 industries in 21 days. So right from ideation to brainstorming, to writing, to coordination, proofreading, editing, publishing, distributing, marketing, everything happened within the 21 days. And that was an excellent project. And one of the things that we really found is that while we are physically we are distant from everyone, this project really got all of us close together. And it was something that we really looked forward to. So amidst the gloom of the pandemic, this shone like a hope, and it really fed in a lot of positivity. So that's about the book project, Lauren. You're on mute, Lauren.
There we go. How's that? Great. I think one of my colleagues muted me. They know me better than you guys. Thank you. Thank you for that. So it's an exciting book to get to read. The title is Shifting Gears, a winner's playbook to pivot during a crisis. And among the selections, among the authors within your book are Srijata and Babu, as well as yourself. And I guess just as a quick follow-up, how can viewers, and we have about 53 viewers right now and more coming, how can viewers access this resource?
So the book is available on Amazon Kindle. So if you go search for Shifting Gears, you will be able to get the book. It is it's very, very low priced. So the idea is there's no commercial interest in the book, excepting the fact that we want to really pass the message wide. So Amazon is a place. We also have our own website, psai.in, and if you go there, you'll be able to find the book too. But Amazon is the easiest to find the book.
Thanks very much. So thanks for that. I just wanted people to know, as they hear from you and Babu and Srijata, I wanted them to know how they can get more information and the work that you've done. Now, I'm going to ask the question next to all three panelists, and I'll ask you to answer in kind. From your perspectives, what changes do you see happening in the business environment in the future, and specifically in India's business environment in the future? I'll let you start, please, Kiruba, since you're on the line.
Sure. So one of the biggest changes in the industry, across all industries that we are seeing, is the fact that because businesses are closed, forcibly closed, because the people are forcibly kept indoors. Now the lockdown, there's a little bit of a relaxation, but for all practical purposes, everything is shut. And consequently, there's a huge impact on the way how people would go and advertise. So earlier, people would be spending quite a bit of money on advertising their product or advertising their service. This could be through marketing initiatives, through advertisements, through newspaper, radio, TV, and that's how it has all gone through. But what is the point of even advertising now if people can't even get out of their homes? They can't go to a shop and buy. So every company's advertising budget has been shut down. Every company, because they cannot go and sell, there's no point in even thinking on those lines. And that's where the big shift happened. And as part of the book project and as part of another book that I'm authoring called Digital Selling, I reached out to many businesses and asked them, so how are you pivoting? What is the major change? And one common thing that really came about when I spoke to all of these businesses, and that is, while they have completely shut the door on marketing, they have ramped up heavily on sales. So now we are finding every means possible as a way to reach their customers. And they know for a fact that every customer is now sitting in their homes. Every customer is now accessing internet heavily more than before. This would mean, I know they're more on Facebook, they're more on Netflix, they're watching Amazon Prime. So businesses have now started to reach customers where they are more active in. So they have now ramped up heavily on digital selling, which is reaching out to customers who are very active on the online medium and trying to convert them into paying customers. So that's where the shift I'm seeing.
Perfect. Thank you, Kiruba. I would like to now turn to Babu. Babu, you're a financial consultant. Same question to you, please. From your perspectives, what do you see as the changes that are happening in business in the future?
Thank you, Lauren. Pleasure being here. From my perspective, which is finance, the most important change that people have noticed and have observed in the past 2 months has been relating to money, right? You've had businesses that have closed down for 60 days, no sales, zero income coming in, but they all had to pay their salaries and rentals and so on and so forth. So to most of the entrepreneurs that I have been chatting, money has been top of their mind, as to how they're going to manage after the pandemic. And to that extent, I think there has been a little bit of a shrinkage in terms of how they have budgeted on various expenses. So that's the first change that I am noticing from my end. Second is, a lot of entrepreneurs have also started looking back and reviewing their entire organization processes and various stuff. So all of it, from my perspective, has been relating to how do they run a more leaner organization, given that money is so scarce to come by. So that's my understanding of what's been changing in the last 60 days of the pandemic.
Thank you so much, Babu. That's informative. I want to turn now to Srijata. Srijata, you're a speaker. You tell stories, real life stories, to give explanations for what you see happening around us. Can you please, from your perspective, what changes do you see happening in business? And if you have any stories to share, we'd love to hear them. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. Yes, I am seeing quite a few interesting stories happening. And coming from an entrepreneur's fraternity, where I've been in the entrepreneurship space for years together now, and I have been interacting with a lot of small, medium, and large businesses at a scale, I see one change happening very, very quickly. At one side, I'm seeing a few entrepreneurs who have gone numb. They don't know exactly what to do, and how to come out of this, this pandemic, this challenging or changing situation, let's put it that way. On the other hand, I'm seeing another entrepreneurs. These are small and medium enterprises, and I see them quickly changing the way they do their businesses and bring out products or services that suits the correct situation. Let me share a quick story here of a friend of mine who runs, she was a quilter. She's a small quilter based out of the Nilgiris. And she employs local women for her business. So her primary business was making and selling quilts, handmade quilts. But as the pandemic started, I see her quickly changing from quilts, which probably won't get bought now, to making masks, face masks, and selling them. So that is something that is an amazing, concept of a pivot for your businesses. Likewise, I've seen a couple of other businesses who have done such kind of pivots, which is actually bringing more for their businesses. In fact, she's doing much better post-pandemic than she was doing earlier as an entrepreneur. So that is something that's a positive story here.
That's a great story. And you're reminding me that, I see some of the folks on the line, like through Thai and AirSui. We had a wonderful program in 2017, the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And the focus of that summit was Women First, Prosperity for All. And I think that the resilience that we're seeing in this quilter, this woman who has taken her profession and she's figured out how to pivot in a different way, in a way that's actually going to be helping other people with their safety and security through masks. I think it's a great example. So I knew you'd have a good example, Srijata, a good story for us. Thanks for sharing that one. If I could stay with you, if I could stay with you for a moment. So as a leader, I'd like to know, as a business leader, how are you adapting personally? Do you have any quick tips or ideas or best practices to share with our audience?
Yes, 100%. It was chaotic at the beginning. And I mean, I was grounded within not even 12 hours notice. And everything changed. Everything immediately changed without even any understanding of what's going to happen in the next a month, 2 months, 3 months, no visibility in that. So initially for a couple of hours or maybe a day max to max, I was in chaotic situation, not to understand what to do, how to do, etc., etc. Then what I did is I sat down, I realized, okay, this is an inevitable situation and we can't do much about the happening outside our homes. We can probably control what's happening inside our houses. So first things first, I generally work from home. So for me, it became easier. I have a home office. However, it was very clear that everybody in the house were working from home, which meant space crisis, first of all. So aligning that, okay, I have a call, say at 2 o'clock, you have at 4 o'clock, let's align the timeline. So that was one thing that was done, aligning times with everybody's understanding. Second thing was, of course, being a woman and being an entrepreneur, being a working woman, it became even more challenging because the maids and the cooks were not there. Suddenly, out of blue, it wasn't there. So obviously, I had to again align there and bring the entire family together, making them realize that, listen, now everybody has to pull in, and do house chores. So that was another thing that I did. And third thing that I did was demarking my time that, okay, morning 9 to 6 is what I'm going to work. Just because I'm working from home and just because I'm online, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be 24/7 online. So these are some of the small things that I made change. And finally, I think the quarantine helped me to kickstart my YouTube channel, which I was hosting, holding it for a long, long time. Because of the scarcity of time, you're traveling and you're here and there. So that was another good thing that happened. So, I mean, when you were given so much of time, I just kept asking myself, what am I going to do with this extra time that I have left?
Excellent. And that's how you shifted. Yeah, no, that's how you shifted gears. Can you tell us what the URL for the YouTube channel is so that we can tune in?
You can search by Srijata Bhatnagar. You should be able to find it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sri. I'm going to turn now to Kiruba. Kiruba, question being, how as a leader have you adapted personally? Obviously, one thing that you did, which is so helpful to us, is put together this great book with other authors. But any other examples or tips or ideas about how people can manage through this pandemic and also just build the resiliency through this pandemic? Kiruba, please.
Sure. They say when the fishermen can't go to the sea, they repair their nets. I think it's the same thing that really applies to us. So one of the things that I really found is now, all the projects that you wanted to do and complete previously, but you never had the time, that excuse is now flown out of the window. So this was an excellent time for us to go and find out areas that we wanted to really pick up on. In terms of certifications, in terms of reading new material, catching up on reading books that you long wanted to read. So just purely from a self-development perspective, I think it was very useful to ramp up on learning. It's also important, second, not to be drawn into this rat race of saying that, hey, you have these 60 days of time that God has gifted you, make the most of it. Sometimes you can get trapped into this productivity zone, saying that you must produce. Look at Facebook and look at all others. People are doing so many other things. So the trick is not to get drawn in. There is no competition really here, but do things that really speak to your heart. So taking on personal passion projects, which have no commercial interest at all, is also a wonderful way to cope with it. So I am an organic farmer, and I've long been wanting to build a small farm cabins at my farm. So I've been using this time to really design and architect things completely on my own. So those are things that I'm doing to cope up.
That's fantastic. As I mentioned before we started the call, my brother's also an organic farmer. And during this lockdown in the United States, he's found tremendous joy and calm in being able to be outside and work the land and see things growing and see things thriving. So I think that's a wonderful story that you're sharing. And I think that people worldwide are doing that, including the United States and here in India. Babu, I'd like to know some tips that you would give as a leader, personal tips, and maybe some of the ways that you are dealing with people who are coming to you in moments of crisis, asking you about their financial futures. How are you staying calm and productive? Any personal tips or best practices you have to share, please?
So unlike the other two panelists, Lauren, I struggled for a week. Acceptance was a big problem. In a normal day, I am used to kind of stepping out of home. I am a marathon runner, so I spend a lot of time away from home. And during an office time also, I spend about 10, 12 hours. But if you force me to sit at home, that kind of was kind of claustrophobic for me. So I kind of had a great difficulty in accepting this initially. It took me a week. Slowly, then I came to the acceptance that this is the reality. And then I started. The first thing I did thereafter was to craft myself a timetable, right? We may all be inside our respective homes, but how can we use the time better? So I created a timetable for myself, starting from the morning I get up to my yoga sessions, to my office work, set out time, including time for leisure, Netflix, reading, and started sticking to that. Over time, I think that got me a semblance of, a positive mindset. Second thing I did very consciously is to tune out a lot of negative. In these times, it's easy to psych yourself just reading a lot of newspaper articles, looking at news constantly of number of people dying by corona, right? So idea is to tune out a lot of negative news and see if you can focus on the positive side of things and go do your work. Now that's what I did for myself, and I'm very happy where I am. As far as clients are concerned, one of the things which I've constantly been advocating and talking to my clients, in fact, we have increased communicating to our clients by a factor of about 5 times in these times. And we believe it's very important to communicate more when things go wrong. And these are very difficult times. And one of the things I constantly tell people is to not take any decision when they are emotionally kind of charged, both positively or negatively, any which way. And these are times when most of us are emotionally kind of impacted. And we tend to take decisions now, which we can go back and later, kind of say, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have done this at that point in time. So one of the first things we tell people is not to take any emotional decisions. Take your time, sleep over it maybe, and then come out with whatever you think is the right way to go. So that's one simple tip we think is very relevant for anybody, not to just run in and take a decision. I hope that helps.
Thank you. It does help. It's more good advice that you're giving me as I plan. I want to turn now to a final question before we open it up for the viewers and take their questions. And it's kind of the question, and I'll ask you first, Babu. What comes next? What are the opportunities for the future that maybe weren't there before when things calm down? If you can give us just a minute of thought on that, and I'll ask you then also for a piece of advice that you would give to each of our viewers. But first, I'm going to ask you, what are the opportunities for the future do you see? What comes next when things start to calm down?
So I think the future is enormously bright for all of us as entrepreneurs. If you see, the need has never changed, Lauren. Over the last 5,000 years, no need has changed, right? Our need to feed ourselves hasn't changed. Only thing, as time has gone by, we have evolved to newer tastes. Earlier, we used to, pluck the fruit out of the tree and eat. Then we kind of cooked our food. Now we Swiggy or Zomato our food, right? So then the way we have done it has changed. And I think surely in the future also, Few very, very important things I think will happen in the future is digital and automation is going to be the way forward, because with more and more social distancing and people becoming more comfortable doing stuff digital, I think a lot more things will move digital, and automation is going to be the mainstay of how we are all going to progress. So if you ask me two things that's going to follow out of this, I'd say most businesses will move largely digital, and there'll be a huge push towards automation.
I think
that's a quick question.
No, that's a great answer. And I would just say, on the behalf of the American Center, I'm sitting here now in the American Center, which is located in Gemini Circle. We have the largest collection of American Studies materials in all of South Asia, or at least one of the largest, if not the largest. And we're trying to think exactly that, Babu, how we are going to be able to provide our patrons with more services or equal services, including through virtual means. So that's the purpose of one of today's programs, but it's also very much in our thinking as an institution. I'd like to turn now to Kiruba. Kiruba, your answer for this question about what comes next. In writing your book, you must have been thinking about there are being opportunities in the future for entrepreneurs, for business people when things calm down.
So what comes next is this is a good time to really look at New Zealand. It's a good time to look at China, strangely. Things have pretty much gone back to normal. The pandemic is almost to a close, or hopefully. But if you notice that is kind of going to be the way forward if you look at it like 6 months, 1 year, 2 years from now. If you go back and you really relook at it, you see that life would have come back to normalcy the way how we actually know this right now, but with substantial changes. And the changes that I definitely see, like Babu said, will be the digitization is going to be massive. I can tell you from my own experience, one of our clients is a silk sari showroom in the temple town of Kanchipuram. They are a massive showroom. They do business in hundreds of crores of rupees. It's a really big business. All this time they were taking digital as one of an extra activity. But in this 60 days, their entire focus has now gone to digital, and now their eyes are opening up to the massive potential that this is coming through. I mean, look at even the book that we authored, right? If you were to write this book in a traditional publishing format, it would take you between 6 months to 8 months if you went through the traditional publishing route. But in Amazon Kindle, you can actually get your book up in 24 hours. So clearly, people will start to leverage digital and get their work done much smarter, much faster, and far more efficiently.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Please, if I could get Srijata, can you please help us with knowing, in your opinion, what comes next? Opportunities for the future when things calm down. And, you put, how do we find opportunity amidst the biggest setback of our generation?
Yes, true. In fact, I personally believe that every big setback that we are presented with in front of us actually is a setup or a stage for opportunities. So from that, with that thought, I would say, yes, there are huge opportunities that are already coming in, and more will come out. One of the things that I am noticing is that there is all the boundaries. For example, the country boundary or state boundary or, those kind of boundaries are all diminishing. It's all disappearing. Like, you don't have to, for example, as professional speakers, we don't have to really travel to a particular country to give a keynote. You can sit at the comfort of your home and happily give that keynote to anywhere in the world that you please. So you become a global speaker or a global businessman or a global entrepreneur sitting right here in your home. So that is one thing that I'm noticing, and it is happening really, really fast. Second thing is, yes, of course, it will be a huge opportunity for people who can quickly change the way they do business right now. I was speaking to Chennai Rotary a couple of weeks back, and over there, a few entrepreneurs were worried in terms of how are they going to manage the physical business aspects of it. Like, they have, say, 500 showrooms all over the country and things like that. However, it happens to be a very, very, very popular brand. And so my suggestion to them was that all you need to do is look for quick ways to turn online. Because you don't really need to do marketing to bring in customers. Customers are already there. All you need to make sure is that your product is available in the medium where they're looking for it. So those kind of changes, when we are able to do it, I think that will bring in a huge amount of opportunity for people. That's my thought process here.
Lauren, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. That's a great answer. Reading your chapter, finding opportunity amidst the biggest setback of our generation, Srijata, it was very inspiring and spoke to the things that you were just mentioning. I guess, let me ask Kiruba, thoughts that you would have, I guess, on the one piece of advice, and we're going to kind of do rapid fire here. One piece of advice that you would give our viewers. You've put together this book, so you can say publish a book in lockdown. But what's your advice? One piece of advice that you'd give to our viewers?
Yeah, use this time to calmly think of what are the things that you really enjoy doing. Right? This is a great time for us to get out of that rat race and being busy all the time through. So ask yourself what really ticks your heart, warms the cockles of your heart. And this is a good time to write your bucket list. And when the lockdown finishes, then you can really get cracking.
Excellent. Babu, one piece of advice from you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren. I have 3 pieces of advice, Lauren. I'm going to say adapt, adapt, adapt. All the small businesses. Survival of the species and survival has always been about adapting to the new environment. We have seen countless changes in mankind so far. This is one more change we will encounter, we will overcome. But the guys who will be the most successful from a business standpoint will be people who can adapt to this changed environment. Change environment as to more digital, less physical, and a way to reach a larger global audience as compared to a more local audience. So a lot of these factors will become great positives for small businesses, but they will have to adapt. And then my one single advice would be adapt. Yeah.
Excellent. And Srijata, one single piece of advice that you would give for our viewers, please.
Lauren, all the advices that I wanted to give already Kiruba and Babu copied it from me. So just kidding. But the piece of advice that I would give, now that whether lockdown gets over or not get over, there is going to be a change in the way we work. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, I'm seeing it with a lot of companies, including my husband's company, who have given them a free hand saying that if you want to work from home, you can work from home. Now, in such a situation, it will become very, very important to have a set timeline. Create a timetable for yourself. And that timetable should have everything from work to spending time with family to entertainment and other things. Make sure you give equal importance to all of these things and create a timetable that nurtures you, that makes you feel good at the end of the day, and that actually makes you productive. So that is my one piece of advice. Create a timetable for yourself.
That's great. Thank you so much. What I'd like to do now is open it up to some questions that we've received from our viewing audience. I'm going to start off with Vincent D'Souza. Vincent, I don't know if you remember me. When I first arrived in Chennai, I had the pleasure of going through Fort St. George with you on a tour, walking tour, that was arranged by S. Mutaya, a great friend, and the chronicler of Madras. So happy to see you tuning in today, Vincent. Vincent commented, we at Mylapore Times are getting a positive zing now after our special advertisement rates for our small business people, from real estate brokers to services. We are running in services in all stores and food joints that have reopened to keep them abuzz. So just talking about how publications, we think about this being a hard time for print publications, but maybe there's a way for them to pivot right now. as we've been discussing. Vincent was wondering if you, Srijata, and also Kiruba could speak to tips about how we can trigger local retail businesses on the ground, how we can support and the word he used was trigger a local retail business.
Can I go first?
Yes.
So, interestingly, Facebook about 4 days ago launched Facebook Shops, and this is a boom for small businesses. Now, they don't need to worry about setting up an e-commerce shop. They don't have to worry about having their digital presence. Facebook is the largest social network in the world. That's where most people are logging in regularly. And I think businesses should really take hold of this opportunity, and it's very easy for anyone. You don't have to be tech literate at all, and for you to set up. So that's one tip that I would definitely give to quickly jump online.
Great, and Srijata?
Yeah, I agree with Kiruba on that, jumping online is the way to go. And the second thing that would be very, very important here would be to making sure or, letting the customers know that we are taking measures that will take care of your safety and hygiene. So I'll just give you a quick example. I live in an apartment complex, and there is a salon that was running inside the complex, which had to be closed because of the pandemic and things like that. Recently, they have opened. Now, they have started taking services for people. However, with stringent measures to be taken in terms of safety kit. They're calling it a safety kit. They're charging the customers 150 rupees extra for those services, but they're giving those kits. It has a glove, it has the coverage of the head and things like that. So I think that is going to be very, very important. After this, how are you going to gain back the trust of your customers from a point of view of safety and hygiene? If you're able to do that, you're good to go.
Excellent. Great answer. Thank you so much. We've got another question from Muthuvalan Sampath. And I'm going to ask Babu here. Do you think that the digital approach is applicable in all kinds of businesses? And assuming it's not universal, what do you recommend? We've spoken a lot today about the pivot toward virtual and digital, but what would you recommend to businesses that are not in a position to do that? Babu, please. Thank you.
So my own belief is that till this point, there was a distinction between businesses that can go digital and businesses that needn't go digital. I think that point of differentiation has changed dramatically with COVID. My view is every business must be digital. The only thing is, it can be extent of digital can be, let's say 20% to some business can be 100%. Take the example of a simple selling of an apartment. I know of a business model during these COVID times has taken their entire business of selling apartments online, right? And they give you a walkthrough online for every single apartment that they are giving. So the customer who could be sitting hundreds of miles away actually has a visual of how the apartment will look and feel without having to actually come down and fix. So I think that's an example of a business that's as brick and mortar as you can get, which has gone digital. So my belief is that every business can go digital. If a business is not able to go digital, my sense is find other ways in which you can get closer to your customer. You can use your WhatsApp, you can use your traditional media, but try and see how much closer you can get to your customer. Because what digital is essentially doing is getting you closer to your customer. If you can do it, if you can't afford digital, find other ways of getting closer to the customer. That would be my answer.
Yeah, Lauren, I wanna completely second what Babu just said with an example. Remember, I told you about this silk saree shop in Kanchipuram. So what they have done now is now they have set up a calendaring system online, so people can pick up a time slot, and at that time slot they will actually show the sarees using their phone on WhatsApp video. So suddenly now what they are seeing is that people from their family members from different cities and even from different countries around the world come together. They're able to select the saree for a special occasion in the family, and they're able to buy. And now they've been able to catch up on sales. Look at the smart thing. I mean, a traditional silk saree is probably the most conservative business you can ever think. And now they have really latched on to WhatsApp video, which everybody is comfortable in. Exactly what Babu talked about.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think that those real life stories are so valuable because it really helps explain to us how different people across India and worldwide are dealing with these challenges. So thanks for that, Kiruba. Let me ask now, Srijata, how do we maintain, here's a question from Shraman Bora. How do we maintain self-discipline while we are remote working?
Okay, so, well, that's very, very simple to do. All you need to do is have a whiteboard or have a chart paper, which is stuck either on your bedroom or where you work, and it has timetables set into it. 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. for this, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for this, or whatever is your schedule, however you would like to, put it across, whether 2 hours is your time limit or whether it is half an hour is your time limit, just create a timetable. And for God's sake, stick to it. Just stick to it. It probably will become a little difficult at the beginning, but the more and more you do it, give it a 21 days, the first lockdown one timeline. And I'm sure you will be in a position to get more and more disciplined with your work from home scenario.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Thanks. So whiteboard. We'll see Amazon orders for whiteboards spike up here. I want to know, Srijata, also just as an entrepreneur, do you think there are any specific challenges that you faced running small businesses or some of your counterparts? And what suggestions would you have to overcome such challenges?
Yes. See, first of all, the biggest challenge for any small and medium enterprise entrepreneurs would be, oh my God, my revenues are going to crash down, and crash down very badly, because you are caught off guard in that particular scenario. But if you have a mindset which looks at solution versus just staying in the problem, and looking at opportunities in the, amidst the challenges that you're facing. I'll go back to the example of this, the woman quilter who works from Nilgiris, and how she changed her entire business model from making quilts to making, hand making the masks. And, you adapt there and you innovate there. The moment you start doing that, the challenge that you're facing will see a different route altogether. Now, let me give you my own example. I used to do a lot of, physical meetups, physical coaching, as well as a lot of physical speaking. Now, suddenly on 15th of March, I still remember the date. On 15th of March, I come to know that, we are not supposed to go out. We should better stay home. Though the lockdown started from 21st of March, but 15th is when my, my family decided that we will not be going out from tomorrow. Now, having said that, I realized that whatever events that I had planned across for the next 2-3 months, everything got chopped off. Like it was zero, completely zero. There was no way I could go and do these speeches or do these, physical meetups and things like that. Now, what I did is, of course, I moved to digital, and I started becoming more and more vocal about myself in different social media and reaching out to the clients, to the customers, and everybody through mails and other mediums. What I did was, a lot of people from countries like Italy, Germany, US started reaching out, saying that, can you do a virtual talk for us? Can you do a virtual keynote for us? So that is the opportunity that that you can grab as an entrepreneur, provided you adapt quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think we're wrapping up now. I did want to ask the speakers to say a bit about a phenomenon, social entrepreneurship. We are very honored at the Consulate. My colleague, senior colleague Ratna Mukherjee, who is running a program called the Indian Women Social Entrepreneurship Network. She's developing this network in collaboration with some of our partners across India to try to create a network of women who are social entrepreneurs, with the idea being that a social entrepreneur is someone who looks at a social problem, whatever it may be, and develops a business solution. And time after time, those business solutions to social problems can be both helpful to society, but also profitable. So I'd like to ask, the question, traditionally, social entrepreneurs have been agents of change. How do you see their role emerging out of this COVID crisis? And if you would, Sri, I'd like to ask you to start, because I think that any ideas that you have about how social entrepreneurs might be a force for positive change as we pivot.
So yes, I mean, always it has been, whenever it is, we are talking about social entrepreneurship, we are looking at a specific constant change in the world in terms of, in terms of a regulated change. And I see that first of all, one thing, as a society, we never wore masks. Never. This is something new for us. And I mean, for me and for a lot of people I'm aware of, it is difficult for them to wear masks and walk around all the time. But if entrepreneurs can bring about that change with quirky ways and in smart solutions, like, like another, entrepreneur friend of mine, she's making masks out of silks. Right? I mean, we're talking about the plastic material versus something that is comfortable to your body and things like that. So she's doing that because, one, she works with the, the social artisans group of the Eastern India. She works with people from Assam and Nagaland and the Eastern belt of India, and they produce silk. And how do you utilize that in the current situation? So she came up with this solution, and she's doing that. So that is one aspect of it, to bring out the change in the way, integrating the social needs and at the same time giving a solution for the current situation. I think that is the way to go.
Fantastic. Kiruba or Babu, any other comments that related to social entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship as a force for change post-COVID?
Yeah.
Or during COVID.
Yeah. So my personal belief, Lauren, is I do not see much of a difference between a social enterprise and a commercial enterprise when it comes to adapting during the pandemic. Things remain pretty much the same for all, because you must grasp digital quickly. You must ensure to get into a mindset that you are no longer constrained by geographical reach, and suddenly the world is your playbook. So I would say that not much of a difference. That's my personal opinion.
All right, very good. And Babu, how about you? Do you have anything on social you'd like to say on social entrepreneurship?
So I have an interesting story that I learned during the course of this COVID. So there was this thing that came up on WhatsApp, and I thought was very interesting. There was this unemployed Brahmin who used to go for these religious ceremonies, and during these times, obviously, even he didn't have a job. But he quickly noticed that the masks are becoming mandatory for everybody, and he found that the lower strata of population weren't able to afford a lot of masks. And I'm talking about the initial days of COVID. So he went to a nearby place where he found that the tailors were without jobs and they were kind of empty. So what he did was he managed to get a large piece of cloth available, told those tailors that I can't pay you a regular rate, but I will pay you some small amount, and got them to stitch a whole set of masks. And then every day he would take this out and hand it over to people of the lower strata of society who are walking around, who couldn't afford to buy a mask. In the early days of COVID, masks used to sell for $200 and thereof. So that's the example of social entrepreneurship that inspires me day in and day out. And my view is that social entrepreneurship, as long as there's a seed in everybody's mind, everybody can be a social entrepreneur in their own way, in their own little way. We can all be social entrepreneurs of change.
I don't know how we could end better than that. Thank you so much, Babu. What a great statement there. I want to thank you, Babu, and I also want to thank you, Srijata and Kiruba, for your time and for your insight. And I hope people have a chance to check out your words and your YouTube channels. I wanted to, we have received many questions today related to the consulate and the opening of the consulate and the embassy. We understand people are very interested in this question. We're also interested in it. It's a matter of safety and security, as you all know, not just in India, not just in Chennai, but worldwide. Our embassies and consulates do remain closed to the public. We hope at this point that you will continue to monitor our website and social media platforms, including in.usembassy.gov, as well as the platforms that you'll see listed at the end of this talk. I also hope that you will stay with us on other American Center and U.S. Consulate-driven platforms and virtual programs. I know that right now we can't have face-to-face interaction, but to the extent that I've been able to hear from these great experts today, and it was really nice to also see some friends who asked questions on our chat. I think that we should continue doing that to the extent possible. For me, it's a form of resilience and pivoting to get to learn from you in this way. And we truly appreciate your time, both you, the panelists and experts, but also the people who joined us today. So thanks everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll hope to see you again here at the U.S. Consulate in the future. Thank you.